In this session, we start a new chapter, Genesis 39, where we continue with the story of Joseph, which we left off in chapter 37. And Joseph, we're reading from verses 1 to 6. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. Ooh. So here we have Ishmaelites selling him to Potiphar. Well, we'll examine all 6 verses right now, without reading the 6 verses, because we will cover them in the commentary. With this chapter, the story of Joseph is continued from Genesis 37, verse 36, where we read, the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's and captain of the guard. Whew. As was stated previously, Midianites and Ishmaelites both descended from Abraham. Now, the Midianites were the product of Abraham's union between him and Keturah after Sarah died. Those were the Midianites. And the Ishmaelites came from Ishmael, who was the brother of Isaac. And they settled in the northern part of Canaan, which is today Israel, the northern part, and they intermarried and they intermingled, and they sort of became one people, and so they were either called Ishmaelites or Midianites, and so that's why we have this sort of confusion. So they were sold by them to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian. The name Potiphar derives its meaning directly from Egyptian words. Poti means given or devoted to, and far, devoted to far. See, the far was the palace. So basically, Potiphar meant devoted to the palace. So he was a direct officer of Pharaoh. He was named after his position, which presumably he inherited from generation to generation. Probably his dad was a Potiphar. And maybe his grandfather was a Potiphar. We don't know. But Joseph worked in Potiphar's household. And the Lord was with Joseph. And he was a prosperous man. And he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. Now you need to understand this. The people that separated Joseph from all his friends and family could not deprive him of the gracious presence of his God. When Joseph had none of his relatives with him, none of his brothers, none of his especially his dad, God was with him, even in the house of Potiphar. It was God's presence in his life that made all Joseph did prosperous. Is that how it is in your life? Ooh, I digress. See, Potiphar definitely noticed it. He perceived by the integrity of Joseph's ingenuity, not integrity, by the ingenuity of Joseph's mind, by his ready and speedy learning of the Egyptian language, by his skill in business, by the loyal faithfulness with which he did everything, and that he was highly favored by his God. He definitely was an extraordinary person for his age. He was bought at the age of 17, and he probably worked until he was 19 or 20 when he was finally put in this position, in the position of being in charge. Wow. Do you realize that Joseph had preparation for this? Just like David was prepared to be king in being a shepherd. Do you realize Joseph was a shepherd? He made reports to his father and helped his father run business smoothly. What training! What godly training! And he carried this forth in the household of Potiphar. And so it was, Joseph found grace in Potiphar's sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house, and all that he had, he put into Joseph's hands. Wow. It needs to be mentioned here at this point that Joseph was not highly advanced at one time. Just like we said, it probably took 3, maybe 4 years. So, step by step, and after some considerable time, he was noticed. It is not likely that Joseph would have been preferred until he had had full evidence of his fidelity, his loyalty, as well as of ability to manage so great a trust, to be in charge of everything, to be the steward of everything. It is also worth noting that when reading through the Bible, it can be forgotten that considerable time may have passed. We read through chapters and we breeze through them so quickly, and we marvel, wow, look at this, look at how quickly this happened. It may not have happened that quickly. If we were to logically put this in that Joseph was put in charge of Potiphar's household, we would have to assume that it must have been at least 2 or 3 years. But the moment he was made overseer of Potiphar's affairs, all of them, it came to pass from the time that he had made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's home for Joseph's sake. The blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. My goodness. In the Geneva's Bible marginal notes, yes, I have that in my library too. It's inserted, the wicked are blessed by the company of the godly. Can I repeat that? The wicked are blessed by the company of the godly. Potiphar may not have made the full connection that God, the Lord God, was there. He may not have made that full connection, but his family was blessed with health. His substance increased. He grew richer. He grew wealthier. He abounded with plenty, even in the field, in the farms. His fields brought forth plentifully. His cattle were fruitful and multiplied. And it was through the blessing of God upon it all for Joseph's sake. Wow. Knowing that this couldn't possibly be mere coincidence, since he hired Joseph to be in charge, everything ran smoothly. Knowing that it couldn't possibly be mere coincidence, Potiphar left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not what he had. He didn't even know what he had. Joseph knew. He didn't even know what he had except for the bread which he ate. And of course, his work. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. Imagine that. God blessed Joseph with the fact that all the servants, all the slaves loved him too. Because Joseph, as a good steward, treated everybody fairly, did he not? Yes. So Potiphar was sure that everything would prosper. Therefore he ate and drank, didn't have a worry in the world. In short, Joseph's integrity was completely unquestioned. So, dear brother or sister, I have a question to ask. And you know what? I ask it of myself too. How much does your employer trust you as a believer? Like it or not, Christians ought to be the wisest people on earth, and Christians ought to be known for unquestionable integrity and honesty. Indeed, we are being observed all the time. And that's an awesome responsibility, is it not? You see, if we are disciples of Jesus Christ, our word should be our bond. Yes means yes. No means no. Somebody asks me if I'm going to do it. Yes, and do it. So our word should be our bond. Question: is it